Is Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed. Deputy SG, what a sad day. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, the passing of the former Secretary General Kofi Annan has sent quite shockwaves around the globe. What can you share with us on this sudden loss?
It is a tragic and a very sad day for us all. Kofi was a very special person to many people, a mentor, getting such inspiration. And he lived his life with the core values of the UN. So today, I think people are reeling. For us, it's really quite surreal. He was, alive and walking that track in Johannesburg in Zimbabwe only a week ago, and I think we're all very shocked.
Deputy SG, look, he has been one of the world's most renowned and distinguished statesmen by far. Although he retired, we had more expectations from him. Your thoughts, please.
Hello? Sorry, the line's really not very good.
Deputy SG, I was saying that he was one of the world's most renowned as well as distinguished statesmen by far. Even though he had retired, we're still expecting very much more from him. Your thoughts on this?
There are a few leaders that walk with dignity and give hope to those of us who are in the trenches and who try to do what we can. And he was just one of them, and he is going to be missed. He was a touchstone for many of us. He stood for the values, calling for peace. Really, the end to so much suffering and conflict and the humanitarian crisis, you name it. He was at the helm of affairs, never quietening his voice.
Take us through some of his most significant highlights of his career, Deputy SG. I mean, in my age, I only came to know of him when he became the UN Secretary General and winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And I've always maintained he was my favorite politician in the world. Such calm and poise, and never lost his integrity.
I think some of the most memorable times have been the voice that he brought to the table to try to end the conflict. Or in the beginning of some, he was all about prevention too. So the Middle East was a big part. More recently, trying to find a bridge and peace and doing the right thing in Myanmar. I think so many to remember. It's quite difficult to talk about it because to try to remember him as is really quite hard.
Absolutely. Look, he was also a revered humanitarian who was quite involved in many organizations, both internationally and, of course, pivotally in the African continent, winning a string of awards and getting international recognition for his role here. Some of these being, of course, appointed the president of the Global Humanitarian Forum out in Geneva, and he never stopped until his untimely death.
He went on to do so much more after the UN, and in fact, I think probably even more as the leader of the Elders Forum, his foundation. As you said, the many voices he was asked to lend to trying to build bridges, to bring people onto the side of delivering on peace, delivering on getting over the challenges that we have. And this is something that we are sorely missing. The lead Elders Forum and himself were trying to fill that gap. Today's a very difficult time, and he never stopped giving. He never stopped giving.
Absolutely. Look, we know he was also part of the elders group that was formed by Tata Mandela, the first black African man to be the United Nations Secretary General. How will you remember him, and how should Africa honor his undying devotion to its liberation as well as peace?
I think the honor that we can do him is to take that torch that he's passing on and to live that legacy, not to just talk about it, but to get up and to do something about it. That's what he would have wanted us to do. And I think that this is important for the young generation to know that baton passes, and it passes every day in one way or another. And today we've had it pass to us, and we will pass it to others. And I think it's important that we live up to the values that he held, the legacy, and the work that he was doing right to the end. He was marching for peace. He was talking to people in Zimbabwe who have a new dawn with their elections to try to make peace, to heal wounds, to grow their country, to aspire to realize the aspirations of their people. So there is so much for us to do. The best that we can do is carry that torch and run with it.
Absolutely. And Deputy SG, look, I mean, from the UN, I know it's still a bit early because the news only broke out this morning, but what firm plans can you give us at this stage in terms of how you're going to be honoring him and, of course, leading up to his final service?
We're just getting the news, and we're working on it. But I can assure you, around the world, there'll be so many honoring in many different ways. And today, the Secretary General has asked that our flags will fly half-mast around the world, and that's just the beginning of how we will honor him. Yeah. As I said, the real honor will be in what we do, in the work that we continue along the path that he's led.
I mean, how was the reaction to the news? I understand you are in Nigeria right now, but I mean, have you had any international callers, your colleagues out at the UN, who have also called you to express their shock and sadness at the passing of the late Kofi Annan?
Well, from those that are devastated, the tragic loss, it's unbelievable. I mean, he was so very much alive to us just yesterday. You know, people were still talking about the last time that they've met him and would meet him. You know, still there are so many things we will be doing with him this year. And I think, yes, people have called. The Secretary General has received so many calls, outpouring, reaching out to the UN because, you know, they all felt him the embodiment of the UN. And so it's an act of solidarity, and that's happening around the world. We would like just for our prayers and our thoughts to be with Nan and the children right now because they really have the deepest loss.
All right.
It's a global loss, but the deepest is for their family.
Absolutely. And your final words of comfort for the family and the world at large, Mr. Amina?
Well, I would say that, you know, Kofi Annan, our African son of the soil, has moved on in a year that is 100 to Madiba, that we've just lost Aretha Franklin, that we've lost Winnie. And he stands with all-time greats, and they should be so proud, and I know they are. We are honored to have him in our lives, and our prayers and our thoughts are with them at this very difficult time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That is the Honorable Amina Mohammed, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, on the line to us all the way in Abuja with her sentiments of the passing of the late Kofi Annan.